Please be seated. I love Advent. I love the mood of it. I love the change of the season. I love the sense of expectation and longing. I love that it's 4 weeks. It's just short and you just get into it and then it's gone. I love all these Advent hymns in our hymnal. They are some of my very favorite hymns. Of course, some of the Easter hymns are my very favorite hymns, and some of the Pentecost. But still, these are really, really wonderful hymns. And I love the stories. I love hearing about Gabriel coming to Mary and giving her this astonishing message, and her agreeing to it. I love the story when we get it of her going to see her cousin and Elizabeth's baby leaping in the womb when Mary appears. I love the story of John the Baptizer coming and proclaiming what's going to happen, and his odd wardrobe and even odder diet. And I love the prophecies from Isaiah. One of the things I do most Advents is to take part in the Ann Arbor Community Messiah Sing. It's December 13 at 3 o'clock at the church I used to work at, St. Clair's. But it's not a St. Clair's event. It's a community event. If anybody wants to join me, we sing through not every single bit, but a lot of the Messiah. And when it comes, like it opens with a tenor solo, but all of the tenors sing it together. And it's great fun. Did you hear about the person who decided to read the Bible for the first time? And as they're reading along, especially in Isaiah, they say, wow, there's so many good quotes in here from the Messiah. and those are the messages I love in Advent. And then every year we get to this first Sunday of Advent, and when I'm not smart enough to have asked the seminarian to preach, because it's always the same, we start not with any of those things, but with this apocalyptical reading. Sometimes it's more end-timey than this even, but we start with not those stories of Advent, but we start with this reminder about Jesus' second coming. That's how we always start. And this idea that we need to be watchful and awake and ready, not let our guard down, be ready for when Jesus comes back. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker that says, Jesus is coming, look busy? Or maybe not busy. Maybe how we get ready for Jesus is to not be busy. But it always kind of cuts me up, takes me by surprise in some way, which is silly because I know it's coming. But it also makes sense when we celebrate Advent. We look forward to Jesus coming as he came the first time as a baby incarnate, as Jesus was born at Christmas, and we look forward to all of that, and we're building up to that. But we're also looking forward to the second coming. So I want to remind us all that is part of our liturgy every week. We always, several times on a Sunday morning, we remember that that's going to happen. We say Christ has died, Christ is risen. We do. And in the Creed, we remember that he's going to come again. It is part of what we do, but there are some Christians that seem to dwell on it a lot more, that seem to really worry about it maybe, or even some try and predict when it's happening. There are times over all of the last 2,000 years where people decided they figured out when it was going to happen, and people made plans for the rapture, and they sold or gave their houses away because they weren't going to need them anymore. Jesus was coming. And my mother used to love to tell about the Millerites who, I think in the early part of the 20th century, discovered the day and time, and they all went to a hilltop, and some of them climbed up in trees so they'd be closer when Jesus came. And then somebody came along and blew a trumpet, And they thought that was it, and they leapt from the trees and fell and broke their legs and whatever. It's not, in a way, in our consciousness in that same way. And yet, I want to say, what would we do if it were? What would we do differently? When Matthew wrote this gospel, it was probably about 50 years after the events that he recounts. And the earliest writings in the New Testament are, of course, Paul's letters. And Paul didn't know he was writing the Bible, right? He was pastoring these churches that had started. He was helping them understand about this new way of worshiping, this new following of Jesus, what it entailed, what we needed to do. And it's clear throughout his letters that they thought it was happening any time, right? He wrote about, maybe you don't really need to get married because Jesus is about to come anyway, right? And they thought it was imminent. So by this time, and if it is imminent, you don't really need to write the Gospels. You don't really need to write that accounting because it's all going to change within a matter of days or months we're still waiting, aren't we? And when Matthew wrote that, enough time had passed that he needed to remind people that this is still a thing. We still think Jesus is coming. But it was clear that it was important to recount and record for future generations what had happened. So we have these 4 accounts, the 4 Gospels. And I think, when I think about this idea that we need to be ready, we need to be awake and watchful, and it's really not necessarily because we want to be the one that's taken in the field while the other person is left behind. It's because we want to follow Jesus. It's because we are so overwhelmed by God's love for us that we can't do anything but to love back and to strive to do what Jesus asks of us. And I think we do that whether we think Jesus is coming next week or next year or in 10 years or in another 1,000 years. We do what we do because we are compelled to follow Jesus. So we feed the hungry, and we clothe the naked, and we welcome the stranger. We do all those things that Jesus said. We care for one another. We strive to be faithful in every way. And it doesn't really look any different than what we're doing, I think. And maybe it's just important to have a reminder about how important that is, about how important it is to continually strive to be closer to God, to follow Jesus more clearly, day by day, follow thee more nearly, love thee more dearly. No, follow thee more, I can't do it. Day by day. Yeah, the first one is, it's clearly, follow thee more clearly. Oh, well, it's in our hymnal, actually. Day by day, dear Lord, of thee 3 things I pray, to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly. Thank you. That's our job. That's what this is all about. That's what the first Sunday of Advent is calling us to. And every Sunday is calling us to. Amen.
Amen.